Okay, this will be a description of Quickdraw's new ability to do threading substitution option. Now, we've looked in the past at how to do profile substitution. The threading substitution here, I now have 2 copy buffers. And if I set up a profile draft, for example, just a little sequence there, each point in the profile draft will either be foreground or background, if you will. What I have now added, 2 copy buffers. This one will be used for the background. The black one will be used for the foreground. I'm just going to copy and then I'm going to paste, and I've got myself two chunks of pattern. If, for example, I actually go through and modify this one so that it's got a huck pattern. I'm going to be weird and not do a real legitimate huck. So I've got something a little bit different. So now I can actually see the difference between the two. Now what I want to do is use this as the foreground. And when I do the thread, select the profile I want to deal with, do the thread substitution, I can now see that it's actually drawn what was in the profile draft. If I go back again for a second. So each one of those, each one of these points that was set to the dark was substituted with the pattern down here that I'd done to the dark. And these could be virtually any size you want, so long as the number of threads per repeat times the number of points I'm trying to multiply out, so long as that'll fit on the grid. The nice thing about that is it automatically will handle how all the blocks of the threading and treadling works. And the reason that is especially nice, if you really look at Madeline Vanderhoot's book on how to do the block substitutions, especially the tie-up, gets to be really tricky. This is a really nice tool for allowing you to define whatever you want. And like I say, I'd done this as a larger block. If I wanted to actually do that as a smaller block, and set that into that side, and then just pick up a single F block. So long as the 2 blocks are the same size, and I carefully select what I want. When I hit the thread substitution, it's a much more conventional huck. So I can do whatever I want to do there. And the other nice thing about that, if I actually save this at the moment, what I'll do is save as, let me just call it test. Now when I reopen the grid, I've got 2 threading sequences, the basic profile. As a matter of fact, if I want to, I can also even, if I just select those 2 threads, if I call that a profile draft, and I go for the threading, I can select even, for example, a double weave. If I now go to the grid and import that, so for example, if I wanted to use that as the foreground, that as the pattern, I can actually now even do a thread substitution and get a double weave pattern that way. So it's a very flexible tool, and you can kind of merge different things back and forth. And the nice thing about it, it's all saved. It'll tell you as you're playing how many shafts and treadles it takes. And that is a quick summary of the new threading draft substitutions. Thank you. This will be an update for version 5.3. Now in the earlier versions, I've been able to do threading substitution for 2 structures. What I've really added here is an ability to add more structures. So for example, now if I wanted to blend 3 different structures, let me go to 4 structures. And if I look back at the structure library, for example, if I wanted to do a blended structure that had a combination, I can select, for example, a tabby, copy that to structure A, a point twill, copy that to structure B, and a couple of straight twills going 2 different directions. Notice these are all the same size. So I now have those 4 structures. When I go back over to another blank window, Normally, when I paste it, for example, if I'm set for a fill block, if it's going to paste with A or B, it's going to toggle what's there. I now have the ability of coming in, for example, and when I toggle it, just goes back to the A block. I can fill it in block C. The color just represents the structure, not a color diagram. Later on, I would actually take those threads and convert those into so the color would come out differently. So I can actually do a blend structure. So that would actually give me a blended structure of 4 different threading types. And I've also added the ability to automatically generate structures for multi-layered sequences. And I will do separate videos talking about the multi-layer tools, since that can get a little complicated more than I want to do here. Thank you. This will be an update to the threading substitution abilities on Quickdraw version 5.6. Now let me start out first describing the problem. We're working in the Huck design section of the Complete Book of Drafting for Handweavers by Madeline Vanderhoot. And if you look at her Huck design paper, let me scroll in, you'll see that the hook blocks basically need to change each half block because of the structure of the fiber. And what I did there, let me go back in and look at the updated structure library. Now I added the odd sizes for Huck 357. That's odd in a mathematical sense, as in 1357 versus the normal blocks are even size of 2468. And so say, for example, I just want to substitute. Let me set up the pattern block, and so I'll copy that to block B into block A. Now when I go back to a blank grid, if, for example, I paste what I last copied, there's the straight, I see the first 5-block pattern, everything was fine. When I start to expand, it doesn't mesh out nicely. So what I have now added, let me clear the grid, let me create a little profile here, and I'll select that area and ask it to do a thread sub. So it has the 2 5x5 structures. When I do thread sub, it will actually take the first block, it's fine. The second block, it toggles the bits so that I have the same pattern, and you'll notice the tabby actually is a clean tabby now. So it gives me the same structure. It's a different pattern, but it's the same structure, which is what it really needs to do in order to paste an odd size pattern. So anytime you're doing the thread sub, it recognizes that the 2 blocks it's substituting are both odd sized, and it's then basically does a checkerboard toggle so that it sets the pattern up the way it needs to in order to do that. And I essentially have some fairly smart Huck design paper to work from.